Okay, hi guys. Welcome to the second workshop hosted by Women of Bits on case studies. I'd also like to welcome Sonal Chowdhury and Anusha Kumar, who are going to be taking the session today. Case studies help in solving business problems more effectively. It plays a major role in identifying the cause of a problem more systematically, which helps in proposing an efficient solution. They'll be guiding you on how to prepare for consulting profiles. If you guys have any queries, feel free to post them on the chat box. Now I'd like to hand it over to Sonal and Anusha to introduce themselves and begin the session.
All right, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Anusha. And a little bit about myself. I am a fourth year right in BITS Pilani. I'm pursuing my bachelor's in electrical and electronics engineering. I am an incoming associate at the Boston Consulting Group. Currently, I'm pursuing a thesis at IISc. Apart from that, my internships have mostly been tech-based. I have had one with DRDO and the other one with a US-based company called Athena Technologies. Apart from this, I've also gotten an offer from Micron Technologies. So throughout the course of this, one thing that I would mention later during the resume point would be that I have mostly been more of a tech person. So there were a couple of queries regarding that. We will be addressing that. So if anyone who has had a tech background wants to get into consulting, please feel free to clarify all your doubts throughout the session. All right, handing it over to Sonal now.
Right. So, hello everyone. I am Sonal Chaudhary. I'm currently in my third year pursuing civil engineering. To talk about my internships, I have worked with Ultratech Cement as an operations intern. This was in my second year summer. Recently, during lockdown, I worked with a Bangalore-based startup as a business strategy intern as well. And on-campus commitments, I am a part of the Department of Controls for Boston. I am also a part of consulting committee working with the placement unit. I am also part of the advisory and monitoring committee, 180 Degrees Consulting, and the football team as well. But yes, that's pretty much about me. I think we can move on to the next slide, Anusha.
Sure.
Great. So today we'll be talking about, in today's discussion, we'll be giving you an overview of consulting, how the recruitment process pans out, how the case interviews work, how frameworks operate, and recommended resources, and eventually we'll be giving you a demonstration of a sample case study. Right, so moving on. Right, so what is consulting? We looked up a definition and it said advisory and or implementation services to the management of organizations with the aim of improving the effectiveness of their business strategy, organizational performance, and operational processes. In effect, consulting includes a broad range of activities. In many firms, many firms and their members often define these practices quite differently. One way to categorize activities is in terms of the professional's area of expertise. For example, comparative analysis, corporate strategy, operations management, human resources, etc. But in practice, as many differences exist within these categories as between them. So moving on to the recruitment process, I think Anusha can take it up from here.
Right. So as Sonal mentioned, basically consulting is all about structured problem solving. And typically for any firm, the process goes as is shown here. So the first stage is your resume shortlisting. Second stage is your buddy interviews or buddy rounds. And last is case interviews. Case interviews is what we'll be taking up in detail. Now, talking a little bit more about the first two stages. So resume shortlisting is the criteria differs from firm to firm. So if I'm talking about the big three firms, BCG, McKinsey, and Bain, their criteria may differ slightly. So usually you hear a lot of people say that they expect a certain CG criteria. So speaking from experience, this year we had all 8+ people sitting in for the subsequent rounds. And they expect a well-rounded personality. So there are 4 basic segments to your resume: academic, extracurriculars, internships, and PORs. And they expect to see a spike in at least 1 or 2 areas. So that's about resume shortlisting. Now, coming to the buddy rounds, again, this also differs from firm to firm. They may be evaluative. For us, for our BCG process, they were not evaluative. And this is where you're speaking to people from the firm. So you would have senior associates or project managers. They'll be talking to you and they will be giving you cases, telling you how to improve. And this is a great way to also network and also understand what is expected out of your job, how their experiences have been, etc. The last stage is the case interviews. This is where you're talking to more senior people from the firm. They'll be giving you cases. You have to basically solve whatever problem statement is given. Again, the sort of cases that are given in different firms differ. So, for example, if I take up McKinsey and BCG, I would say are a little bit more traditional in the sense that the sort of cases that they take up are usual profitability cases. So, imagine a firm, a client coming up to you and saying, okay, my profits are down by X percentage, or, we've been seeing a decline in revenues and costs, things like that. So profitability questions are there, market entry cases are there. And then there's this segment called unconventional cases. So I'll be talking about frameworks. There is no fixed framework as such where you can, fit in unconventional cases. You have to come up with your own. Then for BCG also, it's traditional. For McKinsey, they also ask guesstimates. So guesstimates is basically a word comprised of, you have to make certain smart guesses and estimate a certain number of whatever the interview asks you to do. So it could be that how many Coke bottles are sold in, say, Delhi. So this is where you need to take a few smart guesses and understand, how you would break down the problem. It's not to see how accurate your number is, but how well you break down the problem. And though Bain has not surely come to BITS as such, they are a little bit unconventional in their case interviews in the sense that they also focus a lot on mergers and acquisitions. Personally, that's not something that the people I know have really gone through. So we'd be focusing a little bit more on the conventional cases in this workshop. Now, moving on to case interviews. Like I said, these are hypothetical business situations, and the person basically expects you to figure out a way to break down the problem and find the solution. Now, here you are not expected to have a lot of knowledge as undergrads about various different businesses. So it could be anything to do with aviation industry, or just picking up a simple mom and pop shop. It could be anything. You are not expected to have any background of these situations, and there could be a variety of problems that these businesses are facing. It's all about breaking down the problem in a logical manner and figuring it out for the client. One thing that people think with case interviews is that the more cases they solve, the better they're going to get, or the better their chances of cracking an interview. That is not entirely true. It is about the number of quality cases you do and about honing your skills. So I will talk about what the interview flow looks like in the next slide. So typically when you sit for one of these case interviews, there are 4 stages you can broadly break down the interview in. So say you're meeting your interviewer for the first time, the first thing they'll do is set the agenda. Then next is getting to know the interviewee. One thing that a lot of people don't understand is that these interviews are also are equally important when it comes to this getting to know the interviewee part and the wrapping up part. So all 4 parts are equally important. Just your case solving is not going to be enough. So in the second stage, where you say you're getting to know the interviewee, there you can expect HR questions. So here things like, all right, tell me a little bit more about yourself, or what are your hobbies, what are your interests, things like weaknesses and strengths. So these are also things that you should prepare before your interview to make sure that this is not somewhere where you're lacking or suddenly you're just caught off guard. Then comes case solving, and the last part is wrapping up your case. So, once you've figured out what the problem is, you've given your recommendations, this is where the interviewer will ask you, all right, do you have any questions for me? This is a great chance to strike up a conversation with the interviewer. You can ask a couple of personal questions like, what were the most difficult cases you've worked on? Or how has it been like for you working in the firm? Things like that. And this is, once you start making conversation, you'll see that, it gives you confidence. B, you set a rapport with your interviewer, even though like at this end, they will remember you. So this is something that is important, and I would strongly recommend anyone who's going in for these interviews to at least look up a bit about the firm, and if possible, their interviewer, and have that conversation with them. It definitely gives you brownie points. Now, I'll be talking about frameworks also. So frameworks are essentially tools to structure your thought process throughout the case. Now, a lot of people think of frameworks as the only thing you require to solve a case. That is not how it works. So framework is essentially how you're breaking down your problem. So as a simple example, I mentioned profitability cases earlier. So how would you break down profit? Something like profit is basically, you break that down as revenue minus costs. So that basically that's how you usually start these cases. And then you break that down further into the next level. So what is revenue comprised of? What are costs comprised of? Things like that. So that is how your framework would look. And before you get into this breakdown, also you'll have a set of preliminary questions, basically to try and understand what the client is all about, what the company is all about, things like that. Now, a term you'll come across very, very frequently while solving your case interviews is that you should always be MECE. Now, what MECE stands for is mutually exclusive, cumulatively exhaustive. Essentially, when you're breaking down a problem, you want to make sure that you're covering all aspects of it in a certain given level. So there, the whole idea is that the segments that you're breaking down your problem in, so like I broke down profits as revenue and costs, these are exclusive segments. There's no overlap. And together, cumulatively exhaustive, essentially, that means you've covered the entire base. So mathematical formulas by default are MECE, right? But a lot of other, common tricks to be MECE in certain levels. So for example, you're stuck at one level and you don't know how to be MECE here, or, you're just running out of ways to break it down in a certain way. Couple of ways could be, using opposite words. So say I've broken down profits as revenues and costs, then in revenue, I found out that the number of units, for example, are not enough number of units are being sold. So here you have to look at different factors for why this isn't happening. So if you can't figure out, a good way of breaking that down, you can look at it as simply internal or external. Internal factors to the company, external, controllable, uncontrollable, things like that, or push factors, pull factors. These are opposite words that definitely do help while you're trying to be MECE. And another one is process driven. So say I'm looking at a client who is manufacturing or selling certain products. So then you can break that down into the value chain. So the value chain would typically look like, the client is manufacturing something, after which they are looking at packaging, transportation, distribution, and then the final sales. So if you're mapping out the entire process, you are most likely to be MECE. And that's, it basically shows that you can think in that structured manner. So process-driven approaches are also highly recommended. And I think as you guys start solving cases, this is something that you'll understand is really helpful. Now, coming to another factor with frameworks, it is a lot of people start memorizing these frameworks. So whether it's a profitability or a business situation framework, a lot of people start memorizing them and hope that, whatever case you're given, you'll just apply that framework and it works out. That's not the situation. So for profitability cases and market entry cases, you can still, kind of borrow from different frameworks. So you'll be going across a lot of resources, and they would have certain frameworks already given in the books, and you're very, very tempted to just memorize that and just use it. I would suggest, as one, you have started your case interview prep and are solving more and more cases, you come up with your own framework. So it's not to say that you have to be, completely different. Certain things are going to remain the same, but try and incorporate things from different sources and what you feel is the best for certain set frameworks. So for profitability and market entry, it's more or less, kind of set. But for unconventional cases, if you memorize frameworks, you're not going to be able to crack them. This is where you should be able to come up with your own framework, see what logical breakdown is the best. And, while being messy does not, seems like something that is not very easy. Being messy is the best way to break down your problem and actually get to the solution in a structured manner. You will find out that you're able to cover a larger range of factors while being messy, as opposed to, just making a laundry list of whatever comes to your mind. So now moving on. So now I'll be talking specifically about the case solving part. The case solving happens in basically 4 steps. The first, after you have been given your problem statement about, say profits are going down by XYZ%. So you first typically reiterate the problem statement and clarify your objective. So it is very important to do this because it is completely possible that you understood something else and the interviewer wants you to do something else, or you lose out on one part of your problem. So you reiterate the problem statement, clarify the objective with the interviewer, then you move on to the preliminary questions. So this is all about understanding the client. You do not need to go in a lot of depth here. These are basic questions like, okay, I have, say, some manufacturer, what a cycle manufacturer, for example. So what are his revenue streams? Where all is he present? And what part of the value chain does he lie in? So basically, what part of the value chain is, what are the things that he or she is doing? And what are the things that he or she may have outsourced to someone else? So that's not something that we would need to look into in a lot of depth because we don't have a lot of control over there. And yeah, so these are the sort of questions that you need to understand the client. And a good way of thinking about this is that imagine you are the client, right? Instead of the consultant, you are the client. What are the basic things that you would need to know about your own company? So keep that in mind, and then you can go ahead with your preliminary questions. Typically, these questions are 4 to 5. Like I said, you don't need to start solving the case there. This is just about grabbing that initial information. And after those 4 to 5 questions, then you can move on to the case. Now, this is where, now at the second stage, where you're solving the case, right? You need to be messy and you need to start off with your framework. Say in an unconventional case, you don't have a framework. So this is where you'll kind of, need to take a minute to break down how, or to decide how you're going to go about the breakdown of the problem. In typical cases such as profitability and market entry, your first step would be like, okay, all right, so I'm going to say that profits are equal to revenue minus cost. What branch do you want me to look at, and things like that. Or for a market entry case, you first want to gauge the market that you want to go into, and then move on to seeing if it's financially sustainable and things like that. So those are kind of, fixed, not fixed, but they're more or less there, those steps. So you have a broad idea. In unconventional cases, typically you take a little longer to figure out what your framework looks like. But at the end of it, like I said, just be messy and try to solve the problem in those steps. After you have solved the problem, this is the third stage, and you've solved the problem, you have understood what is causing that problem. Now, after that, you often have to give recommendations. Like, so the interviewer is just going to ask you, okay, so you figured out what the problem is. Can you summarize and tell me what to do, or give me recommendations on how to solve this problem? This is a stage where people often forget to be Misi. So even in your recommendations, you have to be Misi. And secondly, you often start rambling while you're trying to summarize a case. So I would suggest you take a small, kind of break, gather your thoughts, figure out what the problem is. You do not need to reiterate the problem statement there. So within 30 seconds, you need to wrap up your summary and give your recommendations. And giving recommendations is where you can get really creative. This is where you can say, okay, this was my problem, and just take a moment or so and think of, what some would be general recommendations. Okay, shift to an alternate geography, or, cut down costs here. Some would be so specific to clients. So for example, you have some prior knowledge of medical industry. So you can say that, okay, this is also something we can do. So say you're trying to combine insurance and medicine, something along those lines. So, those combinations, this also stems from how creative you are and your previous knowledge. This is where you can, again, leave an impact. And while giving recommendations, definitely be Misi. So if you have a problem where in profits, you have a problem with both revenue and cost, then while giving recommendations, break those down. Say that, okay, my recommendations for revenue are point number 1, point number 2, point number 3, and same for costs. And as I mentioned earlier, this is after you've done this, you've wrapped up your interview. This is where you, again, kind of talk to the interviewer. You can say things like, okay, this is how I went about solving the problem. Is there a different approach that you would have taken? And more often than not, there would be a lot of different approaches, because the interviewer is giving this case, I don't know, for the 100th time. So they have seen a lot of different approaches. So again, this is where you leave an impression and have that conversation with the interviewer. All right, so now coming to things that you should keep in mind while solving the interviews. This is a lot to do with how you are, kind of conducting yourself. So be coachable. A lot of the interviews, they will not expect you to figure out the whole thing yourself. They will give you cues, or, kind of point you in a direction that, maybe you want to think about it that way. Do not be rigid. Try to pick up on those cues. That's very, very important. Secondly, engage the interviewer. So while this is testing how, well you can break down that problem and into those, a lot of factors, you have to understand that the interviewer knows that it's kind of a test. It's a test, but you can't let that show. It has to be a conversation with the interviewer. Don't make it a monologue. Don't, just demand information. Solve the case with the interviewer. That goes a long way. And that shows that even in those high stress situations, you are able to hold that conversation and keep your calm. And especially with all these virtual interviews that are going on, the interviewer can lose interest very quickly. So say you've just paused for a really long time, or you're just, solving everything without engaging the interviewer at all. He loses interest and you lose your chance. So make it a conversation, solve the case with the interviewer. They're there to help you. They're not there to, kind of antagonize you or anything. Then the third point is that take a few pauses to kind of, structure your thoughts, and don't go on rambling. While you are solving a case, there'll be points where, you figure out some things are very intuitive. So you say, all right, so this is something that's, straight up there. Like profits are always going to be broken down into revenue and cost. There's not really going to be any other breakdown. But for things where you have to think a little bit, you figured out 2-3 factors, but maybe there are more. Take a pause, write all of them down, convey your strategy that, okay, this is how I want to go about breaking it down. And these are the things that I've come up with. And sometimes it's okay if you have it, if you think that, maybe you're losing out on something, or you haven't really thought of the whole process yourself. You can always say, okay, I think I can't really see any other way around it, or these are the things that come to mind. Can I take a few moments to think a little bit more? Or if it's taking too long, the interviewer himself or herself will tell you, okay, this is probably something you can consider. But definitely take a few pauses while you're solving your case interview. Another thing that you must keep in mind is that you need to listen very carefully to what the interviewer is saying. So any piece of information that the interviewer is giving to you, write it down, because that may be used in any part of the case. At that point of time, you should not be asking the interviewer again, or not be forgetting to solve any part of the case. So this is something that we all saw while we were solving cases. Sometimes there wasn't just one problem, and maybe the interviewer indicated, okay, fine, take a look at this and then take a look at this. We took a look at only the first section, completely forgot about the second one, and that ends up leaving a very, very bad impression on your interviewer. So definitely listen to him or her very carefully, make a note of everything, and while you're solving your case, be very neat in that. So you'll be taking a sheet and you'll be writing down all the information over there. Be neat, do not be messy, and kind of highlight the points, what you where you think you need to maybe circle back and take a look and things like that. Another important factor is that you should not be making any assumptions. So you may have a lot of prior knowledge on a certain industry or how things work. It's great that you know about it, but always clarify with your interviewer if that's how you want to go about it. There may be certain changes. So, for example, if again, I'm taking the example of that cycle shop owner, that fine, okay, what is the value chain like? You may know what the value chain looks like, but always clarify it with your interviewer. So say, okay, from my experience or from what I understand, this is how they typically function. Is it a fair assumption, or can I go ahead based on this? If there are any changes, they will be made immediately at that point. And if you ever have a doubt about something, so this is something my senior told me in one of his cases. It was based on a credit card company. Now, he had a credit card, he knew how it worked, but it's always better to clarify, okay, this is my understanding, and is there something that I'm missing out on? So always clarify your doubts, do not make assumptions, and then move forward. Lastly, keep it very simple. There is no point of overcomplicating your framework, because you will not be able to convey it to the other person, and the other person's just bound to get confused. So definitely keep it simple, and something that you find it easy to follow, and the other person also finds it easy to follow. So these are just a couple of resources that I found were very, very helpful during my preparation. And a thing that I would like to mention here is that very often you'll find people using Victor Cheng videos. These are one of the most popular resources, and case in point by Mark Cosentino. While these two are great resources to help you, kind of understand what consulting is and how to go about solving cases, they are not entirely relevant to the Indian context. And we're lucky that now we have quite a few resources which are specific to the Indian context. So IIT Bombay's Case Interviews Cracked, brilliant resource. IIT Madras's Day One, IIM Ahmedabad Casebooks. And if you want to work on how you break down your problem, frameworks, how to be messy, crafting cases is one of the best resources that I've come across. This is not Indian, there's a set of brothers who basically talk about how they went about their preparation and how to help you come up with frameworks on the spot rather than, depending on some memorized framework. So that's about the resources. We will now be moving on to our practice case. I would encourage everyone who kind of wants to see how a case goes to keep a sheet of paper handy. And as Sonal and I are solving the case, kind of write down a couple of things, see how you would have gone about solving it, what you felt was relevant, irrelevant, or if you have a different way of solving the case, that is definitely something that we can discuss at the end of the workshop. So yeah, I guess now Sonal and I can start. Sonal, ready?
Yes.
Great.
Great. So in this scenario, I will be the interviewer and Anusha will be solving the case. So we'll be starting now. Hi, Anusha.
Hi, Sonal. How are you doing?
I am doing well. How are you?
Good, good.
Right. So if you have a pen and paper with you, we can start with the case study.
Sure.
Right. So here's your problem statement. Your client is a drug lord from Mexico, whose company is reporting a drop in its profits over the last 2 years. They have held you, and you have to solve this situation for them. How are you going to go about it?
All right. So just to clarify, my client is a Mexican drug lord who has been experiencing a decline in their profits over the past 2 years. And they want us to figure out what exactly the problem is and suggest recommendations for the same.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So just a couple of quick questions about the client. Firstly, what are the different revenue streams that the client has?
We are currently operating only in the cocaine business, if that's what you're asking.
All right. What part of the value chain does our client lie in?
Right. So the value chain, we manufacture the cocaine in large quantities in Mexico. It is then supplied to various countries. There, the local drug cartels purchase the cocaine and they further distribute it to the end customers.
All right. So just to see if I got the value chain right, we are involved in manufacturing, shipping, and distribution. And then the final sale of cocaine to the end dealers carried out by local dealers.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. This decline in profit, is this specific to our client or has this been seen industry-wide?
Right. So we have people in a few other cartels who have informed us that there is no serious hit to our competitors' profits.
All right. So basically just our client is facing this issue.
Yes.
Got it. And what is the geography that we're operating in?
So we're facing these profit hits in Asian countries right now.
Asian countries. All right.
Yes.
Got it. All right, Sonal. So I'd like to start by breaking down profits as revenue minus cost. And just wanted to understand if we know of any changes that we've seen in either of these segments.
Right. So in the past 2 years, we have seen that revenues have gone down by 20% and costs have gone up by 5%.
All right, interesting. So there's a problem with both. Since the revenue seems to be the bigger concern here, I'd like to start with that and then circle back to the costs. Is that all right?
Sounds good.
Great. So again, breaking down revenue further into number of units sold and prices. So have we seen any change in prices of our, of our cocaine?
The price has remained the same more or less.
All right. So basically the problem that we're seeing is in the number of units sold.
Yes.
All right. And as you had mentioned, this is specific to our Asian geographies.
Yes.
Got it. All right. So I'll just take a quick moment here to break this down a little further?
Sure.
All right, so I've basically broken down our value chain in 4 parts: production, transportation, distribution, and demand. And this is, and basically, try to figure out which segment exactly is facing a problem. So, has there been any change with respect to our production?
Production has remained unchanged.
All right. Transportation?
Transportation, same. There hasn't been any change.
All right. Has there been any, kind of problems faced with the distribution of the product?
Yeah, so distribution has taken a hit in this past 2 years. Distributors are not able to push the product forward to the local cartels.
All right. So there seems to be some problem with our distributors. And just to clarify before I move on to distribution, has there been any change in the demand?
Demand has remained the same.
Got it. All right. So it seems to me that the problem lies solely with distribution. So I'll just take another moment here to kind of break down the factors that could be affecting distribution. All right. So, with respect to distribution, I've broken down the factors that could be affecting it as internal factors and external factors. So, within internal factors, there could be things like foul play, uh, someone stealing our material. There could be the possibility of new distributors who aren't very sure of, how to go about distributing, or there could be security lapses from our end. So, are any of these problems occurring with respect to our client?
These factors don't seem to be the problem.
All right. So, would you like me to explore internal factors a little more, or should I move on to the external
I
factors?
think we get the gist of internal factors, and that does not seem to be the problem here.
All right. Cool. So, moving on to external factors, a couple of things that I could think of was the possibility of weather or storage conditions that is making our product go bad. And given that this is an illegal business, there is also the possibility of our product getting confiscated. So these are two things that I could come up with. Do any of these seem to be the issue?
Right, so our cocaine has gone missing while shipping it. It so happens that the cocaine is being confiscated by the local police in the marketplaces. What do you think could be happening here? Can you further look into this?
Right. So I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Right, so
Yeah.
the cocaine has been confiscated by the local police in the
Got it.
marketplace.
Got it. Got it. All right. So, confiscating simply could be because of stricter law enforcement in those particular geographies. And it could be that someone's tipping off the law enforcement specifically about our material also.
Okay. So it's the issue here is stricter law enforcement. In light of the stricter law enforcement, the local cartels have been receiving drugs through alternate, less risky routes, and our competitors have shifted to those routes.
I see. So that makes sense since our client's the only one who's been hit.
Yes, that's
All
correct.
right. So it looks like we've figured out what the problem on the revenue side is. Is there something else that you would like me to explore, or shall I move on to the cost side?
I think we have majorly resolved the revenues issue. We can go up the framework and see what's going on with costs.
All right. So quickly breaking down costs as fixed costs and variable costs. Um, is there a particular segment that you would like me to look at?
Can you please elaborate on the channels you're considering in fixed costs and variable costs?
Sure. So with respect to fixed costs, I would be looking at things like rent, utility, labor, vehicle, fuel. And with respect to variable costs, I would like to break that along the value chain, if that's all right with you.
Okay, so fixed costs don't seem to be the issue here. I think we can dig a bit deeper on variable costs.
Sure. So coming to variable costs, again, I would like to further break that down into the variable cost per unit and the number of units that are being manufactured. So it looks like the production is the same as you had mentioned in an earlier conversation. So I would be looking at the variable cost per unit, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Great. So I'll just take a quick moment to, kind of figure out what these are. All right. So a couple of costs that come to mind would be the raw materials, the manufacturing costs, packaging costs, and distribution costs. So have we seen an increase in any of these?
Right, so only the packaging costs have seen a greater, yeah, so only packaging costs have increased over this past period, and the rest have remained the same.
All right.
We have
Do we know
changed
why?
yeah, I
Right.
was just getting to that. We have changed the packaging material for easier concealment and to prevent damages due to contamination. So
All
if
right.
the packaging material has changed, any of the other factors that you mentioned have not.
Got it. So it looks like we figured out the problem for costs also. So which is the change in material, therefore leading to an increase in packaging costs.
Fair enough. I think we have resolved the problem here. Can you please summarize your analysis and give your recommendations for the client?
Sure. So I'll just take a quick moment here.
Sure.
All right. So our client, Mexican drug lord, was facing a decline in his profits, and the problem was twofold. There was a decline in revenue due to our product being confiscated at the local markets, and secondly, there was an increase in costs due to the change in packaging. Now, to combat these issues on the revenue side, we can do the following. We can look at shifting to the alternate routes that our competitors have already taken. We can also look at route sharing with another dealer who may be distributing some different materials and which could help with concealment as well and making some profit by sharing the routes. Or we could look at alternate geographies. On the cost side of things, we can look at getting a different dealer for the packaging material that we're looking at, who may be selling it at a cheaper rate. We could look at going back to our original packaging if this is something that is that hasn't been very successful as as opposed to earlier. And lastly, we can look at reducing the costs in other levers such as raw materials and labor, things like that, in case that is in case the packaging is something that we do not want to shift from.
Fair enough. That sounds great, Anusha. This brings us to the end of our case study. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so this is typically how a case interview goes. And I'm just going to move on to the next slide where we have given a breakdown of the problem, how I went about it. I haven't shown the process breakdowns in case anyone wants those process breakdowns. I can add them and then maybe we can share it with you guys later. And this is how we've broken down the recommendations. So yeah, this is about the case interview. And this kind of brings us to the end of this workshop from what we had, the information that we wanted to give to you. We're open to taking up questions anyone may have. So Miloni, we can do that with the chat. All right, great. I'm going to stop sharing the screen then. Cool. So before we move on to any other questions, there are a couple of them that we had received earlier when it came to from the forms that you guys had filled up. So I'm just going to take those first. Right. So one question was about how I started preparing for BCG. Why are EEE people going into consulting, and is there little scope in the EEE sector? All right, quite a lot of questions here. Firstly, I'll take up the EEE bit. No, there is no dearth of opportunities in the EEE sector. You will find a lot of them over there, very honestly. And I was going to go into a EEE job initially. I had gotten an offer from Micron. It's just that in college, I had also been a part of a lot of extracurricular activities. And a lot, like I was very active in my department. Like Sonal, I'm also part of SSMS from the advisory and monitoring committee. I was a part of the swimming team. So a lot of my seniors had also pushed me to go apply for BCG because my profile kind of fit. That is how I, saw consulting as a viable option. And preparation, when you're looking at the timeline after Micron, I was quite sure that I did not want to go for BCG, very honestly. It's just that my seniors had also pushed me a lot to go for it. And I started preparing some 2-3 weeks before before the resume shortlist came out. So that's one. As far as resources for preparation are concerned, the resources that I had mentioned earlier, those are the ones that I had been using, and I found them to be the most helpful. With practice, I would suggest you do not read cases, solve them with someone. And if you do not have enough people to solve it with, kind of, pseudo solve it yourself. So say you've read the problem statement. You have a couple of things in mind that, okay, this is what I'm going to ask for preliminary questions. Note all of them down, and then, kind of see what the script looks like, fill in the blanks from that, and then see how you would go about breaking it down. Simply reading the case is not really going to help, so I would really suggest you don't do that. Then nature of questions and interviews for non-core. All right. I only sat for consulting, so that's what I can speak to you guys about. Apart from case interviews, it's, as I'd mentioned, guesstimates are there. And yeah, definitely prep for HR questions, strengths, weaknesses. So they'll also ask you things like, what is this one incident where, you made a change, or kind of like led a team? What was the impact? What was something that, kind of changed your perspective on something? So there are a lot of those kind of questions, but strengths, weaknesses, things like that, you should definitely prep for. All right, so coming to my own resume, very honestly, my internships were very, very tech oriented. One was a research internship, and the other one was, it had a lot to do with IoT. So it wasn't something that, immediately said, okay, fine, I'm the perfect candidate for consulting. But maintain your CG for BCG, as I mentioned, 8+ is something that we did see this year. So that's something you should definitely focus on. And I did hold a couple of PORs on campus, so that shows leadership, and that is something that people do take into account. And extracurriculars also. So if you've been a part of a sports team on campus, or if you've been a part of dance club, music club. These things definitely add on to your resume, and it shows that you're a well-rounded person. A person from our senior batch who joined BCG, he was a very, very tech-oriented guy, but he had an extremely high CG. So he was 9.5. So it did not matter as much that he had X number of PORs or not. It's just, that he was of course smart, but that spike in his CG was definitely something that they would have considered, in my opinion. Is there a way to practice consulting? I mean, you can practice case interviews. That's what it's about. How you are communicating, work on your communication, communicate effectively, be concise. And yeah, it's just about structuring your thoughts and things like that. That comes a bit from, that would come from practice. So that is what I, mentioned in practicing for consulting. There are competitions, assignments from somewhere, but does one have to practice it on their own time other than studying about consulting? You don't need to study as such. This is not something that you need to study about. Like, you learn a little bit about consulting, you learn a little bit about the firms, but there is no studying as such. It is practicing those cases. And if you have gone for case competitions and case study competitions, those definitely help, but that is not the only criteria that they will be looking for. It is great exposure. And I think with our BITS campuses, the good thing is that we have a lot of different kind of clubs that also promote consulting, the whole consulting, culture on campus. So the BITS Pilani Consulting Club for various different campuses. In Pilani, we have 180 DC. We've opened up a branch of Share. So these are different organizations that you can definitely join to understand how how you'll be working on a live case and get some experience out of there. I currently don't have any experience to put on my resume for consulting. How can one increase his or her chances to get selected in consulting companies? If this person's there on the call, I would really like to understand what sort of experience you're talking about, because they do not expect you to have a consulting internship. Consulting internships are a little difficult to get. So if you do not have any experience over there or an internship with a consulting firm, that's absolutely all right. Like I said, it is about a well-rounded personality and being a part of different things on campus. So if you've been a tech person, but you've also had time to get into some extracurricular activities, or different things, if they are a part of your resume, I think that definitely increases your chances of getting through. Right. So these are the questions that I had gotten as a part of the form. I'll just be looking
I think there are a
at the
couple
chat box
questions in
if
the
there's
chat.
any question. Sorry?
I think there are a couple questions in the chat box.
Yeah, I'll just take them up. Is there any such thing as being over-prepared for a case interview? Right. So I'd say it's more about two things. Firstly, if you are preparing too many cases, you become a little rigid in your approach rather than being flexible, because you've done those sort of cases. You feel, okay, this is the only way I want to go about it. Secondly, you'll face case burnout. So honestly, while prepping, there were days where I would not want to practice a single case. So a case did not go too well, or I was just sick and tired of practicing cases. So I'd say don't, go in that overkill zone. Okay, I want to solve 100 cases before I want to get in. As it is in the Indian context, there are limited number of cases. Just solve them well. And another good activity to do is, after you've solved a case, you've gotten your feedback. Okay, these are the things that you could have improved on. So just sit and see how, if you were to be given this case again, how would you structure it? Just structure the cases that you've already solved again in the most efficient manner that you think is possible. That also helps a lot. So it's not just the number of cases, it's how well you solve those cases. What did you mean by you started prepping for BCG? I mean, BCG was the consulting firm that I was aiming at. So after the call for the resume came out, that's like we finished making our resume, which is also a very long drawn out process. You will get it vetted by a million people and things like that. But apart from that, after we had submitted our resume, we took a break, and that's when we started preparing for interviews. So it's not specific. When I say specific to BCG, it is the kind of cases that you're doing. So it's not that BCG gives out ki, "Okay, these are the XYZ cases that you have to do. These are what we'll test." It is profitability cases, market entry, unconventional cases. So it's just the type of cases that you know what are specific to firms. But apart from that, it's like there's nothing as very, very specific to prepping for BCG. You can prep for any like consulting interviews that way. Can you talk about the process of bagging consulting related internships, especially applying off campus? So very honestly, that's not a process I've gone through, but I would imagine it's a similar process only. You would be required to prep for case interviews. A senior of ours had gotten an internship at Oliver Wyman. Harshaman Sinha is currently a business analyst with McKinsey and Company. They had come to campus, and he was one of the 2 people countrywide to be taken in for those internships. So they are difficult to bag, I won't lie. But apart from that, yeah, you would need to prep the same way, I suppose. A lot of the big firms don't take interns. So BCG, McKinsey, and Bain do not. Others may take, other consulting firms may also take profiles such as analysts. So I'm not sure if that's the same process over there. As you mentioned, you started prepping for BCG 2-3 weeks prior. We did not actually. We had lesser time to prep from as compared to our previous batches. So once the resume shortlist came out, we had 2 weeks to prep. We had luckily been prepping for a week or week and a half before that also. So we had covered some number of cases. But after you start, prepping in those 2 weeks, so you'll never feel that the time is enough, very honestly. But you talk to your buddies, you solve cases with them, and you see your own technique improving. So I guess, after that, it's about simply breaking it down. Some people get it very naturally, some people become very good at breaking down the problem very fast, and some people do not. So you never know if it's enough time, very honestly. But yeah, so after that, we'd solved some X number of cases. Our seniors had advised, 20 to 30 cases, which you have solved well, which you've not just read. Those are, I think that's a good number. That's when you know you're in a good space and you've practiced at least enough to go for that interview. Cool. So any other questions?
Anusha?
Yeah.
I think Shrija asked in the middle, what's the difference between a business analyst profile and consulting?
Basically, the firms call different the same role in different with different names. So McKinsey calls them business analysts. BCG will call the same profile as an associate, and Bain would call it as an associate consultant. So it's the same profile. It's a consulting profile.
Right. But I think we have covered all the questions.
Someone just sent something. Could you please expand on how to improve your communication in these case interviews? Definitely, when you're practicing with your friend or your buddies, in the case of your buddy processes, they will tell you that, okay, here is, where you are going into too much depth. So this is something that comes with practice. And if you feel that there's some part that you're lacking, so you may feel that you're not being clear enough, or you talk too much while trying to explain a particular point, you can always ask the other person to look out for it and kind of, tell you, get feedback, or you could even, kind of record yourself, especially for summaries. This is something that helped a friend of mine. She wasn't very good at summarizing the case. It would go a little bit too long. So she would record the summary, play it to herself, and see where, she could kind of make it shorter. So that's something you can look at. Anything else? All right, Meloni, I think we can hand it over to you now.
Hi, actually, Sonal, there was another question. Could you tell us about your internship experience?
Right. So my internship first was an operations role with Ultratech Cement. It was more of like civil core. I don't think that's very relevant here. But after that, I worked with a Bangalore-based startup called QA Tech. It was a business strategy intern. So what we did was it was a team of 15 people. They took in a couple people from colleges like BITS, IIT KGP. There were people from IIT Kanpur and a couple of NIT Trichy. So colleges like those, and they basically try. So QED is a platform that gives you an opportunity to get hands-on industry experience. It's like a more complex version of intern shala is what you can think of. They provide you projects like good, like decently paying projects where you get legit experience, something that you don't usually get on, something that you're not aware of, especially during college. So what these guys were trying on was, since this idea is in the initial phase, they wanted a strategy as to how to reach the students. And their target audience was the colleges which we were taken out of. So we prepared a strategy which included what all factors to be taken in, what timeline they should be coming in, a lot of multiple other factors. So we created a final strategy for them to reach out to these colleges, future prospects, etc., etc. But yes, that was, it was not exactly a consulting role, but business strategy is very like that's what it focused on.
All right, there are two more questions, so I'll just quickly take those up. Is 8+ compulsory for a consulting profile? I'd say this is subjective to the firm. Like I said, from my experience, when we had the BCG shortlist out, there were all 8+ people. But from what I have heard, so McKinsey did not come in our years, so I'm not sure about what the criteria is right now. But earlier, this is what I heard from my seniors, they are a little bit more lenient with the CG criteria. So I think they do go till 7.5. But usually these big three firms, like they expect a 7.5, 8-ish. And to be on the safe side for placements in general, I would suggest that if you have time to pull up your CG to an 8, that would be great. If you're 8+, you're definitely, kind of sorted for at least the big firms. All right, since
I think
consulting,
I had a question for Sonal.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Since consulting roles are so competitive, what kind of fallback options can one consider? Could you share your opinions on this, Sonal?
Yes, yes. Abhigya, I have been in that exact same spot. So fallback options, um, I have been looking into the same. There are product roles that you can look into. There are multiple domains. Like for example, these Victor Cheng videos that we have suggested. There are similar frameworks that like these similar questions, not exactly like with a little bit differences, are asked in product interviews as well. So you can look into that. Product is definitely an option. It depends. Entirely depends on your interests. I am a little bit into finance as well, and I'm looking forward to a credit-based internship in Punjab National Bank. So that is one option for me. But for you, again, if you want, you can like personally contact me and we can discuss this further. But as of now, I can't think of like there are a lot of non-core roles that you can look into since you're looking into consulting. There is operations, there is product management, etc., etc. But again, it depends on what you're looking for. Great.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys, for taking the time out to help us. It was a very engaging session, especially the case study that you presented. It really gave us a feel about how interviews would be and how to go about approaching the problems. Also, thank you guys for attending the session. We'll post a feedback form in the chat box, and please do fill it and let us know if there's any other workshops that you'd like to attend.